Good morning. ஸ்ரீ அன்னை பகவான் ஸ்ரீ அரவிந்தர் அப்பா தவத்திரு கர்மயோகி அவர்களின் பாதார விந்தங்களில் பணிந்து இன்றைய வெப் மீட்டிங் நிகழ்ச்சியை துவங்குகிறோம். இன்று கேரி சார் அவர்கள் சாவித்ரி புக் 1 Canto 4 Secret Knowledge Part 2 இதை பேச இருக்கிறார்கள். Now I am inviting Mr. Garry to deliver this speech.
Good morning. This music, about 10 days ago, Appa was telling me about it, how as the singer goes on and on, the audience breaks out in joyous appreciation, thinking he has reached the climax. Only a few minutes later, he goes higher and higher. And that experience reminded me and Appa of the first two lines of this canto. On a height he stood that looks towards greater heights. Our early approaches to the infinite are sunrise splendors on a marvelous verge, while lingers yet unseen the glorious sun. What now we see is a shadow of what must come. So this music piece is 36 minutes long. The first 6 minutes we didn't play because the meditation's only 30 minutes. The first 6 minutes is only the instrumental warm-up. So I thought, all our life up until now, all our lives up until now is all part of the 6-minute warm-up. Only coming to Mother, we begin to hear the song. And what we hear now and what we know of Mother now is like a sunrise splendor on a marvelous verge while lingers yet unseen the glorious sun. When we read Canto 3 about the king's yoga, Aswapati's yoga, it was like that. He goes from peak to greater peak. He goes and discovers what no human being has ever discovered. And at the end of that journey, which transcends all spiritual experience up till now, when we think it's the climax, Sri Aurobindo starts the canto by saying, on a height he stood that looks towards greater heights. For those of us who have come to Mother, however we are, when we look back, we do feel like we have come so far and we're so lucky to be here, though we know in our hearts that there's so much more we should give to Mother, we can give to Mother, and there's so much more we can discover of Mother. This music reminds me this is only the beginning of the song. And Canto and Savitri, written 100 years ago, well, actually 60 years ago, talking about Aswapati's experience and the descent of Savitri, of the Divine Mother as Savitri, thousands of years ago, is talking about the dawn of the human evolution. And now, after the descent of the supermind in 56, after Mother and Sri Aurobindo have come down in the body, what we see as a height is only the beginning of the song. Where all other yogas end and where all other aspirations end, Sri Aurobindo has come to tell us this is only the beginning. Don't stop in the beginning. In chapter 1 of Life Divine, he says, don't stop in the middle. all the spiritual quests have stopped in the middle. They got to a height. They got a glorious song. They felt happy. They felt peaceful. They felt enlightened. But there's so much more beyond. And that's the significance of the symbol dawn that we started with. The dawn keeps coming every day. It keeps coming more gloriously, spiritually, but it's only a shadow of what must come. Don't stop in the middle. So last time, we started this canto, which he calls Secret Knowledge, where he's really trying to give us a hint of the whole of which all the spiritual experiences and all our experiences are a part. He told us that our summit selves, our real self, awaits discovery on the heights. We don't know our real self. We don't know why we've come. We don't know what life is for. We don't know what the life is. We don't even know what Mother is. Even when we pray to her, even when we go to her, think about her, even when we see her power. In Agenda, in the second volume of Agenda, Mother refers to Savitri, and she says, Savitri is the universal divine mother. Then she says, she's the mother of all universes. I thought universal divine mother means the mother of a universe. She's the mother of all universes. And that's not all she is. He tells us, deep in us, even when we're unconscious, even when we're forgotten the divine, deep in us, there's something that's growing towards the light. He told us that our souls can visit great spiritual heights, and that consciousness from those heights can come down and descend into us as peace, as silence, as joy, as love, as a breath of fresh air and delight, as a divine presence, which I think all devotees have experienced in different ways at different times, even if it's for a minute, and know it's really something real. This is not a philosophy. This is not a belief system. You don't have to believe anything. You have to experience it. He says sometimes the little ego can thin away, maybe just for a minute. For a minute, we can forget our false self, and our soul can merge with nature and with the divine, and we can really, for a moment, get a glimpse of what that secret is. He describes Aswapati receiving revelations of truth, knowledge that no mortal ears have ever heard before. And the knowledge he's trying to reveal to us in this canto is a knowledge that mortal ears have never heard before. We may be hearing the sound, but let's say mortal beings have never known and understood what he's really saying. He tells us of a larger self within us, a diviner presence, which is the master clue, the magic key of our own unborn divinity. He says, all that we see as chance and coincidence in the world is not that. All the mystery, the riddle of things, the paradox of life that we can't understand why things happen, all of that will be revealed when we know the secret. I heard a story recently, true story about an American man named Maxwell Morrison. when he was a boy of about 15, he was growing up in the U.S. and in a kind of a rough neighborhood. So like the children of his age, this was about 50 years ago, or no, this about 40 years ago. Just to show that he's a tough boy, he used to comb his hair in a funny way and wear earrings and carry a knife, just so people will think he's a tough boy. But he was really a very shy boy. One day he was by the lake and he was by himself, lonely, and just spending some time, and he heard some sounds. And he looked out and he saw that on the shore of the lake there were 3 boys, actually 4 boys, 3 big American boys and 1 small Asian boy. And the American boys were very rough and they were threatening the boy, and they said, "We'll throw you into the lake." And the Asian boy, he was from Thailand, he said, "I can't swim. If you throw me in the lake, I'll drown." "Yes, why shouldn't we do it?" And this boy, Maxwell, who normally doesn't relate to anybody and doesn't have any friends, he came out. He was a little older than these boys. He came out and walked up to him, and he said, "You leave this boy alone." And the 3 boys, "Well, who are you? You think you can be tough with us? We will show you. We'll throw you in the lake also." And Maxwell pulled out his knife, and the boys said, "Okay," and they went away. The Asian boy told him, "My name is Tran Pak. I'm from Thailand. You have saved my life today. If they have thrown me in the water, I surely would have drowned." We believe that somebody who saves your life, we have a debt of gratitude which we can never forget, and we must repay. And I will never forget you, and I will repay this to you. That was when Maxwell was 15. At the age later on, he became a policeman, and he was in charge of security for the police at airports and other places. He went on a vacation to Thailand. And as he was going through the security at the Thai airport, a woman, a young mother with 3 children came up to him. She's holding a baby in her arms, and she has 2 other small children with her, and she has so much of hand luggage. She says, "Sir, I'm struggling to carry all of my luggage and handle my children going through security. Could you please carry 1 bag for me?" So he said, "Yes, I will do that." And he carried the bag through security. And when the bag went through the scanner, the security officer stopped it. They opened it. They found it was filled with cocaine. And they immediately arrested him. He tried to protest. He said, "This is not even my bag. It belongs to that woman with the children." And he looked around, and that woman wasn't there. The penalty for smuggling of drugs in Thailand is life imprisonment. No exception. They're very severe. And their prisons, nobody would like to be in even for a day. Very horrible places. And they have done it with a number of Westerners who were foolish enough to take drugs. So within a few days, he was brought before the court for trial. And within 45 minutes, the whole trial is over. The prosecutor said, "You're guilty." He said, "This is not my things. They belong to a woman." They said, "You're a police officer. You're a security expert. No security expert will ever be so foolish as to carry somebody else's bag through the Maxwell said, appearances can be deceiving. When he said that, he remembered where he had first heard that phrase, appearances can be deceiving. It was 35 years earlier when he saved the Thai boy. The Thai boy said, I thought you were a very rough, bad boy with your haircut and your knife. But now you have saved my life. I see. Appearances can be deceiving. 35 years later, he remembers that phrase and he speaks it in the court. The judge in the case looks up at him. Then the trial is over. The judgment has to be given. The judge gives the judgment. He says, appearances can be deceiving. I find this man is not guilty. And he dismisses the case. And after the case is over, the judge calls him over and says, don't you recognize me? I'm Tam Pak. You saved my life 35 years ago. The moment you walked into the court, after 35 years, I recognized you. Appearances can be deceiving. This extraordinary story, we all know some stories like this in our life. But what Sherbind was telling us in The Secret Knowledge is our whole life is a story like this. Our whole life is an appearance which is deceiving. And everything that happens to us is an appearance that's deceiving until we get the secret knowledge and we understand what life is really all about. Yesterday I was driving up from Pandi and Appa's grandson Ajay was with me in the car. I know Ajay since he's a little boy, but rarely did I ever have a chance to talk to him. So we were together for 3 hours in the car. I started telling him some story. It involved Appa, and then I realized that he doesn't know the background to that story. I asked him, do you know about this? Do you know about Mother Estates, how Appa got it? He says, I don't know anything. So I went back and I started telling him from the beginning, and I started telling him how I came to India and how I got interested in meditation. And I told him a story, really not of any importance, but how a very famous music group, most famous music group in the history of the West, called the Beatles, how they went and listened to a Maharishi, Mahesh Yogi, talking about meditation. And suddenly all of the Western world got interested in meditation and yoga because of a pop group. I told him that story. He doesn't even know who the Beatles are, and all. And this morning I opened the Hindu, and there's a big article in the second section telling the story of how the Beatles went and met Maharishi and how the Americans and the Englishmen got interested in. These are the things, when you see them, it looks fantastic. It looks like a riddle or a paradox or a mystery. But the fact is, this is happening to us every minute. This is not a rare occurrence. Life is not responding to us occasionally or once a day or once a week or once in a lifetime. It is always responding to us. And that's the knowledge that he's trying to offer us in this book. What is this all about? What is this riddle, this paradox, this mystery all about? So he has taken us to the point of Aswapatis going higher and higher and discovering more and more. And now we come to really the beginning of the secret knowledge. He says, everything that happens, all that's there, is part of an illimitable plan.
Garry?
Yes, Ashok.
Just now you talked about the deceptive appearance. I think that would fit the description of the world as it is now. The world is a deceptive appearance that disguises the divinity that is there. Appa constantly talks about some marvel that people can see when the supramentalization takes place. What is this marvel that is waiting to disclose?
He's going to give us a hint of that marvel in this canto. But what he's offering to us is a secret knowledge, has real value only when we make it into an experience. Sri Aurobindo has not written Savitri to give us an intellectual knowledge or a philosophical knowledge or a set of beliefs which we can get from life divine. He's written Savitri to give us an experience. How do we convert the poem into an experience for us? It can't be done by an explanation. We have to take these words, these ideas, and apply them in our own life. Take one line. Since we started Savitri, I have been reading the lines with Appa, and sometimes one line we end up on for an hour. Not exhausting it, just seeing, what does this line tell us? How do we understand this in our own life? It's so deep and it's so broad, you can't go further. How can we go on? We only read one line. So I can give an intellectual explanation for marvel and it will be flat. Here he's giving a poetic inspiration about that marvel. It will still only be words to us until we can see it in our own life. For Maxwell Morrison and Tran Pak, this is not an argument. A man who was on the verge of being sentenced to life imprisonment is saved by a momentary act that he did 35 years ago. And he didn't even recognize Tran, but Tran, who promised to be grateful, recognized him immediately. But Morrison remembered the words that had been spoken 35 years earlier just at that moment. Are we conscious of the fact? This is not a rare occurrence, but it happens in everything big and small. So I would say, rather than me giving an intellectual explanation for what is marvel, let us read this canto to search for that marvel. Let us find, by the time we finish this canto, that each of us in our own life have had some inkling of that marvel or remembered some of the experiences in our own life where that marvel showed for an instant, where for us also there was a glorious sense or vision or uplifting feeling. And then we should know we're still only in the 6th minute of the raga, and this is only the beginning. Ashok's question is the right question for us, but the right answer is the answer that he's going to give us in the poem, not an explanation. Explanations are there in Life Divine. So he says, all that transpires on earth All. He doesn't say some things. He doesn't say occasionally on Sundays or when you're lucky or when you pray to Mother. Or he says all that transpires on earth. He doesn't say only to Mother's devotees. He says everything that transpires on earth. And he doesn't stop there. He says all beyond earth. All in the other worlds beyond earth or the other universes beyond earth are parts of an illimitable plan. The one keeps in his heart and knows alone. This is a plan of the one who keeps it in his heart, and he alone knows that plan. And he says it's an illimitable plan. What is an illimitable plan? The very idea of a plan is we start here and we want to go there, and these are the steps we take. Have you ever heard of a plan that doesn't have a starting point or an ending point? All our plans have a beginning and an end, or at least a beginning and a goal. This is a plan that has no beginning and no end because it's illimitable. It's infinite. And we may never know the beginning, and we may never means in this life reach the goal, but we can know the direction we're going in, and we can get some of this secret knowledge of what this plan is all about. Only the one fully knows this plan and keeps it in his heart. But we are part of this plan. We are a key part of this plan. And the more we know about this plan, the faster we will go and the more we will enjoy the delight of the music that this is unfolding to us. And that's why he wrote Savitri. And he says here something that should be familiar to all of us as devotees. It's something when I had been reading Sri Aurobindo and Mother's books for 2 years. And when I met Appa in the first week, I thought I was very familiar with all of Sri Aurobindo's ideas and everything. And I was spending so much of time meditating. And then one day, Appa asked me, he said, "You're meditating very seriously and everything. Have you seen how your meditation is evoking a response from the spirit in life?" I scratched my head. What is this response of life? What does the life have to do with this? I have come here for spirit in meditation. He says, then you may have read all of Sri Aurobindo. You have not understood the first thing that Sri Aurobindo is saying. This is a yoga about life in which your spiritual progress should reflect in everything that happens in your life. For me, it was a new concept because we've come with stereotypes of spirituality in the West. We've never had a spirituality of life. Our culture is not spiritual, it's materialistic. So only when you've got all the things you want materially, you think of spirit. There must be something else. Here he says, our outward happenings have their seeds within. And this is the first step in the secret knowledge for us. And that's how Appa started with me. And I thought it was my real initiation, because he started saying, you must discover that correspondence between everything that happens around you, and you must find those seeds within. That's the starting point. The starting point for changing your outer life is to discover the seeds within. And the starting point for discovering the seeds within, to discover who you really are, is to understand that life is a mirror for all of that. You're looking at your consciousness in a mirror, and by understanding this, you can discover more of yourself. And even this random fate that imitates chance, even the appearance of fate, our karma, there's nothing I can do about it, that's the way I am. My father was like that, I am like that. My country is like that, I am like that. Our tradition is like that, so I am stuck in it. Or things are happening, they have nothing to do with me, I don't know why they're happening, I am not responsible. All of that is only an appearance. Appearances can be deceiving. This is the illimitable plan is written there for us to see. Only we have to know the language. In the first canto, he says, the dawn comes and writes it on the sky with the cloud, with light for a pen, writes the revelations of the future, of the promise of what's coming. We see the clouds, we see the light, we don't understand the message that the dawn is bringing to us. Life is like that every day. He says this mass of unintelligible results, things are happening all the time and we don't know why they're happening, is the dumb appearance of truths. We don't know what the truths are that are trying to reveal themselves to us through things that look like chance. We don't know why a noise comes outside, or why somebody comes in the room, or why suddenly the speaker stops. Yesterday, one devotee said that whenever her husband makes a very unreasonable demand and she even tries to respond reasonably, immediately the air conditioner goes off. She doesn't know why he's responding unreasonably. She doesn't know why he's making demands. She doesn't know why the air conditioner go off, but she sees this is something. This tells me something. There's something that I should learn from it. There's something that we can learn from everything that's happening every minute. Life doesn't just respond when it answers our prayers. Life is responding at every moment to everything, to make us more conscious of what we are until we discover that hidden presence, that unseen presence within. And that's what he's trying to tell us. That's what he's trying to reveal to us as a vision and an experience, not just an argument or an explanation in Savitri. He says, the laws of the unknown create the known. We see so many things happening. We don't see that they're according to laws. We think it's according to chance. I happened to run into that person. I happened to see that person. I went outside and suddenly it started to rain, or that car went by and splattered the water on me and spoiled my clothes. We don't see the significance. Even when we know there's something, we don't know the laws of the unknown. And the secret knowledge is to know the laws of the unknown, know the illimitable plan, and know at every moment that what's happening has its seeds within. He says, all the events that shape the appearance of our lives, all the events are kind of like a code. He calls it a cipher, like a letter or a symbol for something subliminal that's happening in us that we're not even conscious of. Why Bingley comes up to Darcy and says, Darcy, you should be dancing, don't be stupid. Why Bingley calls him stupid. You see, Elizabeth Bennet, she's a pretty girl there, why don't you dance with her? And Elizabeth's sitting there and hears something in the distance and hears him say, tolerable. She's tolerable. I am not here to dance with somebody who's ignored by other men. He doesn't realize at this moment it's a secret cipher for his destiny. Don't be stupid, Darcy. This is the thing you're waiting for. This is the plan for you. This is the happiness that you don't even know you're seeking. And when Darcy calls out and speaks rudely, she's tolerable, which is such an insult. Instead of being insulted, something in her laughs. She doesn't know why she laughs. Something deep within her, subliminal, knows It's a marriage proposal. His calling her tolerable is a marriage proposal. Though it sounds like an insult, though it sounds like, don't bother me with that girl, it's the first step in the marriage proposal. Do we understand that when people get angry with us, or they ignore us, or they insult us, that it's a secret quivering of marriage proposal, of future grace and benefit, if only we awaken? We see in the story that Darcy awakened. He began to understand what the life is telling him. But what a journey he had to go through in order to do that. But he'll never forget his own, in his whole life, when he foolishly asked her to marry him at Hunsford, and the way she spoke to him, he'll never forget it in the rest of his life, even though he's so happily married now. But nobody's ever spoken to me like that. And the problem was everything you said was true. Nobody would ever speak it, even if it's true. But I have insulted you so much, provoked you so much, and you have believed those lies of Wickham so much that you were willing to speak to me what I really needed to hear. If you haven't spoken it, I would have never changed. So whether it's the pleasant things or the unpleasant things, whether it's the just accusations or the false accusations, it's all a part of the illimitable plan. And we have to learn how to read the code, read the signs of the events, of all the circumstances around us. Understand what life is telling us at every moment, because at every moment, life has only one message for us. Wake up. Only one message. Not you're bad, you're sinful, you've done something foolish. Wake up. Become conscious. Come out of the ignorance. Come out of the falsehood. Come out of your ego. Wake up. And everybody, even your worst enemy, is only doing you the favor of helping you to wake up. And that's the key to discovering the secret knowledge. He says, all that happens are born from the spirit sun of hidden powers. All that happens to us has its origin in the hidden powers of the spirit. Normally, that's not our daily experience. If I get tea with salt in it instead of sugar in it, I don't think that this is a great spiritual experience, because I'm looking at the appearances and missing the reality. And the story of P&P is so wonderful because it shows us beneath this arrogant, proud, selfish, even a little mean exterior, Darcy's really a good man. He's really a good man. And he proves that by his acts. But it takes her to bring out that goodness and make him shed everything on the surface. And in all of us, not only those we admire, but those we least admire and those we condemn, there is that same element, that same divine element that is trying to come out. And in everything that happens between us, it's in them trying to come out, it's in us trying to come out. Can we for a minute suspend the idea of judging other people? We're judging other people virtually every time we look and see them and hear them. Oh, he's talking too loud, too soft. He's making sense or not sense. Is a nice sorry or not? It's this or that. He's working or not working. He's sleeping or dreaming or meditating or what. We are constantly judging everybody all the time with our mind and emotions, not realizing that the whole world that we're with, the subject is not them. The subject is awake, awake. This is a message to you. It's a personal message that penned on the sky. The whole thing is a play for each of us. It's a personally orchestrated play for each of us to wake up. And we're only thinking about how other people should wake up and how they should change. So he says, who can pierce through this cryptic gulf, this depth, this mystery, to the deep necessity of the soul that determines each casual deed and consequence? That's the knowledge he wants us to find. So every casual deed, every consequence, every coincidence, we're so absorbed in our daily acts, our eyes are so fixed on the outside, on the external scene, we see the circumstances, we miss the hidden causes. We miss the message that the divine is giving us at every minute. It's not just in the dawn. Every minute, the message is there for us, and there's something for us to discover. There's an opportunity. And he says, how do we get that? We don't get that by studying or making our children study and try to get first marks rank in school or college or university or any such nonsense as that. The knowledge is not out there. The knowledge grows only when we start seeking it within. The knowledge is not when we become an expert about other people, but when we can learn from our relationship with other people, we can learn about ourselves. He says there's a foreseeing knowledge that might be ours, a foreseeing knowledge to see the future, to know what's coming. If only, instead of looking outward, instead of being our ego, we could go in and take the stand of our own spirit that's in there. Then the real significance of everything that happens to us will begin to reveal itself. Then everything will become part of the journey. Everything will become a step in the plan. We'll no longer be lost, wandering in the ignorance, seeing chance and coincidence everywhere. He says, right now our range is fixed within the arc of our thoughts and our observations. We're lost in our thoughts, which are ignorant. We're lost in our observations, which are blind. He says, very rarely dawns the light of the unknown awaking in us. Very rarely we look inside for knowledge, and something of that knowledge awakens the prophet and the seer. The inner knowledge awakens. And of course, this is what happens to Aswapati. Aswapati has finished the outer tour. He is after the inner knowledge. He's discovering the inner being, the inner prophet. He's become the seer is born. We read it earlier. The knowledge is within. Can we teach our children that? Can't we teach our children that in the school? The knowledge is not in biology and physiology and physics and chemistry and algebra and geometry and trigonometry and calculus. The knowledge is to know what life is to teach us. That's the life knowledge. No other society has that knowledge like India. And India, with a vengeance, is trying to teach everybody the Western science, so we can become more ignorant like the rest of the world. And if we can win the spelling bee in America, it's the highest achievement. As if that has any meaning for our lives. He says, man seeks an outer, momentary knowledge. Perfect description of Western stupidity, which India is trying to imitate with a great vengeance. After all of these millennium of great discovery, throw away the Vedas, Upanishads, and Gita and all that nonsense, and get the encyclopedias and the dictionaries, and we win the spelling bee, and we have really accomplished something. The outward and immediate are our field. The past is dead. We've forgotten our past. India has certainly forgotten. They don't even know, people here don't even know what the Vedas mean. Sri Aurobindo had to say that what the secret of the Vedas really is. What was the knowledge the rishis had thousands of years ago? Our minds keep us the soul prisoner. And we're developing the mind to make our prison more developed. We are slaves to our acts. We're so lost in our acts. I have to do this. I have to do that. I have to be like that. I have to behave like that. Society expects it of me. My friends expect it of me. My teacher expects it of me. We are more and more become slaves to the world rather than find the freedom within. We cannot free our gaze from the outer to reach the wisdom inside. We're a child in nature's mighty hands. We're being pushed around by the world around us and our own nature. And we have lost the contact with the truth of what this is all about. We see the garments of the world. We miss the face of the being that's coming to us. We take the appearances like Lizzie when she said, any man that handsome must be good. We're doing it all the time. And he tells us about man's struggling ignorance. A struggling ignorance is his wisdom's fate. He knows not what he shall achieve or when. He's ignorant of the meaning of his life. He's ignorant of his high and splendid fate. And of course, by ignorant, he means all of us. So when do we really understand the true meaning of our lives and what we're living for? How far are we able to make sense of our own life and our own experience? If we have lived for 30, 40, 50, 60 years and become more conscious, what have we really learned? Can we say, oh, I'm now 71, so this is what I have learned in this life. This is why my soul came for birth. This is what I have learned. What else do I have to learn? But he says, the immortals, there are the immortals above. There's the divine presence within, he's told us. There are the immortals above who see and know the truth, who know the truth of the divine plan. There are beings on their deathless heights. They're immortal, they're deathless, beyond the walls of time and space, that are looking down on the creation from the transcendent. He says, they're masters of living, free from the bonds of thought. It's very interesting. In order to be a master of living, you have to be free from the bonds of thought. I can't get out of the bonds of my thought for 2 minutes in the day. And it's not just to have knowledge, to be master of life. As long as we're lost in our thoughts, let alone in our emotions, our sensations, our impulses, our desires, we cannot be masters of our own living, of our own life. Thought is our bondage. All our nature is our bondage. These immortals are overseers of the whole world. They're experts in the theorems, in the science of life. Old acquaintance of mine, a friend, a businessman in the U.S., he sent an article he wrote on August 15th. It's a beautiful article called Sri Aurobindo the Scientist. He says many people regard Sri Aurobindo as a religious man or a philosopher or a freedom fighter or even a yogi. But I want to write about Sri Aurobindo the Scientist because he's the only one who is given the knowledge of what life is really all about and what the existence is all about and what our purpose is in it. And he's given it in a way that meets all of the requirements of science, all of the even rationality of science. And yet the world ignores it. He says these immortals can see the idea that's changing time's course. They see the ideas, the real ideas from the supermind that are driving the course of evolution, that are driving the course of our lives. And he says these ideas, he's using the image of a rider on a horse riding down from the heavens, horses of light going through like the dawn, like the chariot of the dawn, and spreading the messages through the world of change, bringing change, and then going off. He says the superhuman rider, who these lightning thoughts from the Supreme that come down to for the world's evolution. It's happening all the time. We're blind to them. We don't see the message. We don't see the rider. We don't even see the horse. And we don't see the message that it's bringing. The immortals are sending us all the time, that are here to change our life, that are here to lead it forward. He said above the world, there are the world creators. I take it these immortals are the world creators. They stand above the world and they know everything. They patiently wait for the slow footsteps of our progress. They see the truth in everything which we miss. He wants us to awaken to those truths. They hear the sounds of the spirit buried in matter trying to emerge. This is the knowledge he wants to give us in this canto. He wants to give us the secret knowledge that the immortals and the world creators have. He says, they watch the bliss for which earth's heart has cried. They see the bliss that's trying to come, that's trying to emerge in the world and in life. They see beyond the appearances of things. And then he gives a prophecy. And this is the prophecy which Aswapati has discovered in his going from height to greater height, where he saw the immortals. He saw the world creators. He heard their song. He received their inspiration. When he says he found what no mortal has ever known before, Aswapati has seen the truth, which Sri Aurobindo and Mother have come and are trying to give to us. And he makes a prophecy. And this is the knowledge that Aswapati got. He says, thus will the masked transcendent mount his throne. The prophecy is the masked transcendent will mount his throne. What is his throne? Can the transcendent, which is called the Supreme, or which is called Satchidananda, can it have any greater throne than it already has? The tradition tells us the throne is up there, and we should go up there to mount the throne and enjoy, be at least in the presence of the great, glorious transcendent. We have not understood the secret message, the secret knowledge. This is the throne. Earth is the throne of the masked transcendent. This is the throne that he wants to mount. This is the place where he wants to reign, not up in the heavens, not outside the universe. This is the place which should be the light and the sun and the bliss and the knowledge and the glory and the power of the divine. Not just this, not just the earth. Each of us. Each of us is the throne. The individual, the destiny of the individual is to be the throne for the transcendent. The transcendent is not satisfied with having one throne or living through one life. He wants to mount the throne of every soul and manifest his glorious infinite capacities through every being. And he won't stop until he can do that. And that is our destiny. And that is the plan. We are the throne. Our body is the throne. Our mind, our life, our soul, our psychic is the throne through which the transcendent wants to mount and reign in the world. And we're thinking of trying to get up there. When we get up there, we'll find he's not there. He's down here. This is what his goal is. He says, as a thief in the night, it will be the covert tread. When the transcendent comes down, it won't come down suddenly in a cyclone that everybody knows about long in advance. Like a thief in the night, he'll steal in. Steal where? Steal into our hearts, into our minds, and start coming out. We won't even know. At least the ego won't know. The mind won't know because it will be shut off. When the divine comes to us as one who steps unseen into his house, we're his house. He's trying to get inside. We'll close the doors and lock them. We don't want thieves. We're keeping him out, defending it. So this is my house. Who are you to enter? We're the obstacle. We are guarding ourselves against our own destiny. He says, a voice ill heard shall speak. The soul will obey. Notice he didn't say the mind will obey, the heart will obey, or the ego will obey. We will fight him to the end. Our soul will obey and push all of these things aside and open the door and let him in or let him out. A power will come into mind's inner chamber. It will steal into his chamber like a thief. A charm and sweetness open life's closed doors. It's not common sense that will open the doors. When a sweetness overcomes us, when a charm overcomes us, the way Darcy felt in that light in Lizzie's eyes, he will lose himself, we will lose ourselves and be swept away by that. And beauty will conquer the resisting world. The truth light shall capture nature by surprise. It's going to happen by surprise. That's why it need not wait. It need not be thousands of years. Appa says if we're truly sincere, it can happen the next moment. That's why Sri Aurobindo said, yes, it's true, Mother can transform the world in a day. She's waiting for us to stop barring the gates and the doors and keeping her out. A stealth of God, compel the heart to bliss. We think we want happiness. We shun the bliss. Even the rishis and the sages, it's there in the poem. We dread the bliss. We're afraid of bliss. The divine's going to compel the heart to be happy, blissfully happy. And earth shall grow unexpectedly divine. Unexpectedly divine. In matter shall be lit the Spirit's glow. Matter is the throne room. Matter is the divine's throne. Not there. Oh, please open and let me go to heaven. It's not to heaven you should go. God wants to come to earth. This is where the whole show is. In body and body kindled the sacred birth. And then he says, the last 4 lines of his prophecy, a few shall see what none yet understands. It's interesting. He doesn't say a few shall understand what nobody else knows. A few shall see it, shall experience it, even then they won't understand what's happening. God shall grow up while the wise men talk and sleep, which is at our best, that's what we do. We talk and sleep. For man shall not know the coming until its hour, and belief shall not be there till the work is done. We will not believe it. We will not know it's happened until it's already over. We will not believe it until already the work is done. And this is what he has seen.
Garry?
Yes, Ashok?
I remember reading a line in Savitri where Sri Aurobindo talks about man's attachment to evil. When I read that a few years ago, I was totally shocked. I couldn't understand that anybody can be attached to evil. I mean, things like poverty, war, and disease are pure evil. How can anybody be attached to things like poverty, war, and evil, war and disease? But he says man is attached to evil. That is why it is still there.
Is there a question or just an observation?
Concept that man can be attached to evil, this itself is very contradictory.
Why is it contradictory?
Because I don't know of any man who wants to stay poor or stay diseased or keep on fighting. All of us want prosperity, peace, and health only. Nobody wants disease and.
Do you know the phenomenon that man is attached to his ignorance?
That may be. He doesn't see ignorance as evil, I suppose.
He doesn't see ignorance as ignorance. He says his ignorance is true. When Darcy and Elizabeth meet each other, they both think they're true. They're attached. They're not just that they're accusing the other person of ignorance. I think at least that you can concede is a common phenomenon. We all think we know the truth and other people are ignorant. No, if only other people would accept my view and do what I want. That's all that Mrs. Bennett's asking. She's very reasonable. If everybody will do what I want, everything will be fine. Isn't that the normal human condition?
Don't we all per se is not painful. I mean,
ignorance per se is the source of all our pain. Our ignorance is the source of all our pain. Because all the pain we suffer is because of our ignorance and our insistence on the ignorance. And even our love of the ignorance. And even the evil that comes to us is only because we insist on our ignorance. Evil comes to us because only then will it help us awaken from our ignorance. Nothing else would would encourage us or convince us to part from our ignorance, except something as intense as pain and evil and death. And that's what Sri Aurobindo says. We're going to read it in Canto in the book 6, when he says, why should the Savitri's mother, the queen, asks, why should there be pain? Why should there be suffering? Why should there be death? Why should my daughter, who's so glorious, what has she done to hurt anybody? Why should any of this happen to her? Why should it happen to Satyavani, such a good man, such a pure, devoted son? What is going on here? I gave the answer a few minutes ago. I said, everything that happens to us for only one reason: to make us more conscious, meaning to come out of our ignorance. We are in the evolution in the ignorance. He wants us to move to the evolution in the knowledge. And when we're in the evolution in the knowledge, there's no pain, there's no suffering, there's no death, and all. It is the pure spiritual evolution. So if you find it hard to handle why anybody would seek evil or pain, let's start with something that we're all quite familiar with. Let's see the reality that we ourselves cling to our ignorance. We're in love with our ignorance. We're proud of our ignorance, like Darcy, like Elizabeth. We're self-righteous about our ignorance. And all our progress comes only when we give it up. I started rereading Dr. Thorne, Trollope's novel Dr. Thorne, yesterday, because the more we discuss it, the more it becomes a revelation, spiritual revelation, what has happened in that story, and how he has converted the worst possible situation of a murdered brother and an illegitimate child, penniless child, and how she has become the instrument for the elevation of everybody and the whole recovery of the Gresham family, and even Dr. Thorne's becoming. And Trollope starts the novel by introducing Dr. Thorne as a very good, very generous man, but he has one weakness. He's very, very proud of his family tradition. Even though he has no money, he can trace his family back for 800 years, and wherever he goes, even when he meets a lord or an aristocrat or a wealthy man, he always reminds himself that he is equal to that man because of his 800-year tradition. And everybody's provoked by him because they know hidden that thought in him that I am equal to all of you, or I'm even superior. It's like Darcy's pride. Darcy's pride offends everybody. Darcy doesn't speak out against anybody. He comes to the dance and then refuses to dance. And the whole of Meryton is angry with him, slandering him, and willing to believe the worst of him. And she's infuriated by him, and she's willing to believe Wickham's stories about him, because the very act of being proud is a falsehood. He has nothing to be proud of. He should be a human being. He has to give that up. So Wickham comes and brings falsehood to him. You talk about evil. Isn't it evil when somebody slanders and accuses you of the opposite of what you have done? Certainly would have felt like evil to any of us if we have done something very generous to somebody and they accuse us of having ruined their life. No? It's at least falsehood. Why does that falsehood come to him? Because his pride is false. We politely say, okay, I am ignorant, I agree, but that's false. Our pride is false. Our ignorance is false. So all of these things, the formula, he's going to spell it out. He's going to spell it out in much more absolute terms in this canto and in the whole poem. But the simple truth is, we are in love with this, and even that he's going to explain to us why it's there. And what comes to help us outgrow it. So let's not take the most difficult case. Why should we be in love with ignorance? If ignorance is keeping us where we are, if ignorance is the source of all our problems, you look at the characters in P&P. Rather than talk about other people we know, we see everybody else seems to be in love with their ignorance except us. We're the sole exception. We're the only one who really wants the right thing and at each moment. Everybody else is defending themselves. We are defending ourselves against the transcendent, which is knocking at the door, keeping it out. That's ignorance. That's bliss that we are preventing from coming in. So, good question. Anyway, that's the prophecy. So now he comes to us, which is right where your question came from, Ashok. We've had the prophecy. What happened? Now he has given the prophecy. Now he comes to where we are. He's told us that the transcendence, the world creators have the whole knowledge and everything has a significance, and they have the whole plan there. And the plan is that the divine is going to come down, the transcendence is going to come down. Now he comes to us. All of that was for the others. Now what did we? We are a consciousness that knows not its own truth. We're a vagrant hunter of misleading dawns. Dawn is the key. Dawn is the divine coming, but the dawns that we're seeing are not the real dawns. They're the misleading dawns. They're the illusions. They're the dawns of the ignorance. He says, between the being's dark and luminous ends. What are the being's dark and luminous ends? At one end, there's matter. We don't understand anything of matter. It seems to be completely dark. At the other end, there's spirit. For most of us, it's a word or an occasional sensation. It's equally dark, even if it's luminous. To us, it's way out. We're in between. We're caught between these two ends in a half light that seems to be the whole. We don't even try to find out what's there in matter, which he's going to tell us. We don't worry about what's there up above. We live in a half light and we say, this is the whole. I know a lot. I know more than other people. And if I'm the scientist, I think I know everything. Where it's all just a small part. We move here in a half light that seems the whole. Take the characters, whether it's Collins or Charlotte or Carolyn or Darcy or Elizabeth or Lady Catherine or Mr. Bennett or Mrs. Bennett or Lydia or Wickham or anybody. Is there anybody who knows the whole? Is there anybody who sees what's happening or why it's happening or where it's going? Each gets a little tiny glimpse of the half light. We're like that. He's trying to awaken us. Can we for a moment come out of the half light and see the whole? If not for the whole universe, if not for everybody else, can we see the whole for ourselves? If not for all our lives, at least for this life. If not for this life, at least for what's happening now. Can we see the progress that life is offering us and the progress Mother wants us, and what's the next peak for us beyond wherever we are? He says an interregnum. Regnum is ruling like a king ruling. Interregnum is between the rules, between the rule of one king and another. We're caught in the middle. We're caught in the middle between the inconscient down below and the superconscient above. The animal is in the inconscient. The immortals are in the superconscient. We're caught in the middle. We don't have either. We're cut off from the integral truth and the total power. The total power comes only when we know the whole. When we know the significance above and below. And of course, what he's going to tell us here is that the rishis discovered the truth above. They missed the truth below. The Vedic rishis knew the truth below. They may not have realized it. They may not have, whether or not any of them reached the supermind, Mother says we don't know, but they never achieved it. But they knew the light is down there too. The truth is down there too. The goal is not just to get up there. Their goal was never moksha. Their goal was to release the light that's hidden down below. For us, we think of going up. We don't think of all the truth that's hidden by the evil and the suffering and the pain and the falsehood that we should release from that so that our life can become divine. So this is where we are. He says the meaning of creation is veiled to us. We don't know why we're here. We don't know why the world is like it is. We don't know what's happening. We misunderstand the message. Our thoughts are confused. We see only fragments of the truth. We miss the aim and purpose of everything that's happening to us. We have a partial knowledge. He says it leaves two giant letters void of sense. The two giant letters, I believe, are, we have A at the one end of the alphabet and Z at the other end of the alphabet. But the whole thing is all in between. The knowledge is there with all in between. We know a beginning and an end. A beginning is we were born, an end is we die. But what is the sense of everything that happens in between? Why is it happening? What is the purpose of it? We know matter at one end, we know spirit at the other end, but the one thing we don't understand is life. The scientist knows matter, the rishi knows spirit. But the one thing nobody can understand is life, or why it's here, or why it's like this, or why there's ignorance, pain, or suffering and all. And this is the secret knowledge that we should discover. Thus is the meaning of creation veiled. And that's what he's trying to reveal to us in the secret knowledge. And now he begins. Now he begins the revelation of the plan. Up until now, it's all a prelude. It's all an introduction. Now he's beginning to tell us the secret knowledge. He says, two are the ends of the mysterious plan. It may be an illimitable, infinite plan, but it has ends. It has poles to it. He says, and he tells us the goal. He says, this is our deepest need to join once more what now is parted, opposite, and twain, two, divided. What's remote in sovereign spheres that never meet, that is spirit and matter, they have to be united. They have to be rejoined. He talks about the night and the day. We see the day, we see the night. We don't see how they can be united and what is the truth behind them. The scientist sees matter, the rishi sees the spirit, but we don't know what they have to do with each other. Neither of them has the answer in itself. Scientists may have all the truths of matter, the yogi may have all the truths of the spirit, but he still is in the darkness. It's still in ignorance because we don't have the integral knowledge. Whether we know the inconscient or we know the superconscient, we still don't have the truth of things. He says, a hyphen must connect matter and mind. Between matter and mind is life. They're unconnected now. We have to understand the significance of everything that happens to us if we want to get the secret knowledge. He says, this life, an isthmus, you know what an isthmus is? An isthmus is a narrow piece of land that connects two larger bodies of land. I only know one isthmus in Panama in Central America. Between South America and North America, there's a tiny little strip of land that connects them. It's an isthmus. Our life is the isthmus that connects matter and spirit. And we don't know what the relationship is between them. We either look at one or the other. We must renew the secret bond in things. Our hearts recall the lost divine idea. We have to take the alpha, which is the first letter in the Greek alphabet, and the omega, which is the last letter, and we have to see them as one sound. We have to reunite them as one sound. Then shall spirit and nature be one. Now he's coming to it. The mysterious plan, the secret is not to know nature like the scientists know it, and not to know spirit alone like the sannyasi or the yogi tries to know it. We have to know that they're one. We have to know the truth of their relationship. because that's where we live. We are a spirit living in nature. We don't understand the truth. These are the two ends of the mysterious plan. Spirit on one end, nature on the other end. The scientist glories in the fact that he knows or thinks he knows nature, though he knows a very small part. The yogi glories because he thinks he knows spirit, but he even knows a smaller part because spirit is infinite. But we have to know the plan that links them together. Vedanta saw one end, science saw the other end. Sri Aurobindo sees them both and has come to reconcile them. And now he starts. So there's a plan, and that plan includes spirit on one side and nature on the other side, and now he starts with the spirit. What is this spirit that's one end of the plan? And what does it have to do with he talks about the silent self and the spirit's potencies. In the tradition, the emphasis is not on the potencies as powers. When the yogi is aspiring towards moksha, he's not trying to get power. He's trying to get silence. He's trying to get peace. But the real thing that's up there is the source of all power. The tradition has mistaken the silence and the peace for the very opposite of power. It's quietude. The goal of the spiritual journey is to go and be in the peace and silence of the infinite. But he says the real truth of that pole is it's the source of all power. All power comes from the spirit. He says in that wide, signless ether of the self, in the unchanging silence, in that gold dazzling suns above, which no mortal eye can see, the spirit's bare and absolute potencies are there. One end is the powers of the spirit. We don't see those powers. And he's going to tell us, he says, they burn in the solitude of God, inalienable bliss they live. They're immaculate in self-knowledge and self-power. Why? What are they doing up there? What are they for? How do they help us? And it's very interesting because he says, he called him and doesn't need anything, but what about us? We need something. He says they're unmoved by the cry of revolt and the ignorant prayer. This is not the divinity that we have in mind. We want a divine that's going to come and answer all our prayers and serve us. Then why is it for millennium human beings have felt all over the world, if not so much in India, that if there is a divine, it seems to be self-content with itself? Why did the yogis want to go to moksha? Because God's up there. He has no concern about us. He cares nothing for this world. If we want the joy of the divine, we have to go there. He's self-contented, enjoying himself. So let me go and become like God. Let me have moksha, and then I can also enjoy. That's why people left life. That's why the sannyasi left life. If God's not going to come here, I have to go there. So they're enjoying themselves. They're calm. They're quiet. No problems for them. They have no aim. They don't need anything. They don't listen to our cry. They don't listen to our prayer. They don't care even about our sin and our virtue. They don't respond to our voices when we pray to them. He says they're the guardians of the silence of the truth. Their source of their might, their power is their deep surrender. Their deep surrender to the Supreme. They look on our struggle with impartial eyes. This is not the divinity that we want, no? You look disappointed. If this is what I thought the divine is there to make us happy and give us what we want. He's saying at one end, the Spirit seems to care nothing about the world and life. And this, in fact, is what many people have experienced, the great spiritual. Why did Buddha say, life is all a suffering? It's all a wheel of karma. There's no help for it here. The divine is not going to help you here. You want it, you better go for nirvana. You better escape. Shankara went one further. This is all an illusion. You're thinking that God's going to come and help you and save you here. It's all nonsense. It's all a maya. The only thing that's true is that up there. We have to go there. So this view of the Spirit is a real view. In the Bible, there's a book of Job. Job was a very devoted, ardent devotee of God who's praying to God for everything, and all manner of catastrophe comes in his life, all manner of suffering comes in his life, and he accuses God. What kind of a God are you? You don't give me anything. I've tried to be so virtuous, I'm so loyal to you, and I'm suffering on all sides. And he raised that question thousands of years ago, and I think man is still not answered. Many people feel like Job even today, that they still look that way. God may be enjoying himself, but how does that help us? Then the Christians finally decided we better just go to heaven. There's no help for us on earth. So this is a real experience. It may not be the absolute truth, but it's a real experience for many people who have discovered God. If you haven't discovered God, of course, you don't even believe this. You believe there's nothing above. But if you discover there's a spirit above, how does that help me? But then he says, the last line of this section, yet cosmos cannot exist without them. They may be aloof. They may appear to be indifferent. They may appear not to care about us at all. But without them, there can be no cosmos. He's going to explain. It looks like a contradiction. No, this is not our idea of God. If God created the cosmos, he must help us out and do everything here. And these powers are just sitting up there. And there are times we pray and we don't get any response, and we kind of feel like we've been deserted. We've been left, and why? So they guard the silent truth. They uphold the secret divine will, but they appear to have no goal. We think of our goals, what we want, when we say we should ask what Mother wants. Mother, thy will be done. We have no idea what Mother's will is. We keep saying it maybe, Mother, not my will, your will. But what is, we hope that her will is our will, right? We hope that she wants what we want, because we have no idea what Mother wants. We have no idea why things are coming to us the way they are. If she tells us what she wants, then maybe we could pray for it. But we have no idea. She seems to not be concerned. They guard the truth and the divine will, but they don't seem to have a goal. Why don't they seem to have a goal? We can accuse them. They have no goal. What does it really mean? It means we have no idea what their goal is. No? Because we don't know what the goal is, we say they have no goal. He's telling us they have a goal. He's telling us they have a plan. He's telling us that divine transcendent is coming here. He has a goal, he has a plan, he has a purpose, and everything that happens is to fulfill his illimitable plan. we're only thinking about our little plan for the next outing, or for the next 1 year, or for the house or car or job or marriage or whatever it is. We're not thinking of the divine plan. And even when it comes, we're not thinking of that. It's right before our eyes. We're thinking of ourselves. So, and many times, let alone mother, they don't respond to prayer. They don't respond to worship. That's the Buddhist tradition. That Shankara, what's the idea of praying to Brahman to come and solve your problems? The only thing you should pray to Brahman for is to wake up from the illusion of Maya, meaning give me moksha. The only thing you can legitimately pray to Brahman for is moksha, because this is a dream. Wake up, let me wake up from the dream. It's all nonsense. If you start praying that my dream, I should be rich in my dream, or I should be happy in my dream, you only want to make Maya more real. We may pray, but if you really understand what he says, if you really accept what he says, there's only one legitimate prayer, and that is to wake up from the dream. And he says you don't wake up from the dream by praying to God, because God himself is an illusion. You wake up from the dream by overcoming the ego and renouncing it and going for moksha. So without them, the cosmos can't exist. Then what are they doing up there? What good are they to us if they're just keeping quiet? And how is it that they help us? That's really very interesting. Very interesting. 1 second. He says they're impervious. They're indifferent to desire, to doom, to hope. They have inviolable might, meaning all power, but they don't care about what's going on here. Who needs them? What's the use of them if they're not here to help us? They got all the power. They can do anything, but they're keeping quiet. They moveless. They never move, but they uphold the world's enormous task. Without them up there, it's very interesting. Without them up there doing nothing and ignoring us and just not even listening to us, there would be no world. And there would be no progress of the world. It's very interesting. How is that? How can that be? He says it's ignorance. The ignorance of the world is lit by their knowledge. Whatever knowledge we get in our ignorance comes from them. Sri Aurobindo says, I want you to realize you are God and wake up the God in you, and you don't need to pray for anybody or ask for anything. No, I'm quite comfortable in my dream, and I got my door shut, and I won't let the transcendent in. I want to be safe and quiet. Everything's all right. Just give me what I want inside my house. Why don't you open the doors, open the windows, and see you're the king of the whole kingdom. The whole world is your kingdom. So, they're aloof. Their indifference is the thing that spurs our aspiration. If they give us everything we want today, the biggest losers would be us. Because we would get the peel of the banana and lose the fruit. We would get the clothes and lose the life. What we would get is, what we're asking for is not the purpose of things for us. It's not our destiny. It's not what we have come for. It's not what our soul has come for. It's not the divine plan for the universe. That's why the prayer should be, thy will be done, not mine. And we know even to say it is difficult, and to mean it is impossible. Because only the soul can mean that, not the ego. So they uphold the world and make man aspire. The reason they're aloof is, the reason they don't answer us is we're asking for the wrong thing. When we ask Mother for peace, when we ask her for light, when we ask her for truth, when we ask her for sincerity, she never refuses. When we ask her, please give me more banana peels, sometimes she doesn't answer our prayers. And that's lucky. We're lucky we're not flooded with banana peels and starving to death. The spirit remains aloof to spur the human aspiration to become divine. We want the divine to help our humanity. The divine wants us to become divine. And that's why first chapter of Life Divine is the human aspiration for God, light, freedom, immortality. Why doesn't the God come and reveal himself everywhere and give us everything we want? Because if he does that, we won't aspire to become what we're meant to be, what our soul wants us to be, what the divine created the whole universe for. Why we have come, why the whole universe has been created so that we can become divine. We'll be happy. I just want to be a comfortable, successful human being. This is the ape, the arboreal ape in the forest. He's telling us, he's telling the ape, you can become a man, you can fly, you can think, you can go to the planets, you can build, you can do anything you want. He says, I just want more bananas. Just let me be here in the forest with my bananas, I'll be quite all right. We want man to come. The ape, what does the ape want? The ape, when he sees the man in the zoo, he says, did he bring food? God is coming and telling us, get out of the prison, get out of the cage, get out of the forest and be a man, but be a divine man. So if God answered every prayer and gave us everything we want, and destroyed all our enemies, of course, because that's what we really want, that everybody else should lose everything, because then I'll be much greater, and I can have more of this and more of that than everybody else, but I have to have people over which I can dominate, otherwise what's the sense of this? If I'm the only one there, and I have everything, and there's nobody to know how important I am, and how rich I am, and how powerful I am, it's useless, no? So I need people under me. I need people who have less. They're very important. What's the idea of being the king if there's no subjects? No? So that's what the ego wants. And that's what our subconscious prayer is for all the time. Yes, give everybody something so they'll be happy under me, under my reign. And they'll worship me as the king. So this is really very interesting. Then he says, this is very interesting. When I read this, it's the first time I had never thought about it. The spirit's detachment, the spirit's refusal to answer our prayers is itself grace. When Mother doesn't answer our prayers, we say, what is this, Mother? If she gives me what I want, then grace is great. But Mother doesn't seem to give us everything we want. She's limited, no? What we think of her limitation is really her grace. When she refuses to give us what we want, she's really giving us the greatest divine love and gift. Because what we want is not what we need, is not what our soul wants, is not what's going to really make us happy, is not going to fulfill us. If that's true, what's the idea of asking Mother for anything? We should be asking Mother. We should be asking Mother. I'm not saying we shouldn't be asking Mother. We should be asking Mother to give us what she wants. We should be asking Mother to be what she wants, because that's the only way to really be asking for grace all the time in everything. So these potencies of the spirit that are above there, the times when we feel Mother must be sleeping or she must be busy elsewhere because she didn't answer my prayer. Or she's angry with me, maybe. He says, acquiescing in the wisdom that made hell. This is these potencies of the spirit. Acquiesce means they accept. They accept that why should there be a hell? If there's a divine, why should they allow a hell? The potencies above accept that hell, there's a wisdom that has made hell. Hell serves a purpose. That's why Ashok was asking, why is this evil? How can there be an evil? Why should there be pain? He says these powers know the wisdom that there's a hell. If there wasn't a hell, we would never get out of our ignorance. The harsh utility of death and tears, suffering. The utility, we need, the death is necessary for our progress, necessary for the divine plan. And the moment it's no longer necessary, it won't be there for a minute. And that's what the Savitri does here. She banishes death. She dissolves death. It's only temporary. Hell, death, evil, suffering, all of them are only temporary because in this divine plan, which we don't understand, they serve a purpose. The spirit's potencies know what that purpose is. We only know that hurts me, this bothers me, this frightens me, and we don't know the harsh utility. We don't know what it's trying to tell us. We don't know what it's trying to awaken in us to discover something more. Darcy's awakened. Darcy does find a heaven on earth, at least for him. He's not looking for something spiritual, what he found. But how did he do that? He awakened through the harsh utility of pain. She said, you're the last man on earth I would ever marry. Oh, nobody's ever talked to her like that. But we see the utility. We see the value of it. We see he needed it. Anything less than that, he would have never budged out of his ignorance. Pain and suffering are also the creations of that wisdom, and they play an essential role to awaken our consciousness. So that's why I say everything that comes to us only comes to us for one reason, to help get us on the right path. It's not a punishment. Death too plays that role in spurring us. The older we get, the more we begin to value our time on earth because we don't know what happens next. When you're young, you just frivolously spend your time, and you see with the kids, they will spend all their time on the watching the TV or the computer games or taking selfies or whatever it is. You don't know how valuable life is. As you get older, you become more conscious of the fact you can't go on like this forever. We don't know what's going to happen later. We begin to value every moment. We begin to value every act. What have I really come here for? What have I come to learn? Maybe I should be a better person. Maybe it's time I should stop being selfish and make a progress. Maybe there's something to learn. If it wasn't for that, we could go on like this forever. So everything has a purpose. Sri Aurobindo says death is a process of life. It's not the opposite of life. And death had a purpose for Savitri. She discovered it. She rose up and she dissolved death. Acquiescing in the gradual steps of time, the spirit very patiently accepts the slow pace of time. Why? To allow us to awaken. To allow us to awaken. See, in the story, Bingley and Jane have to wait 1 year to get married. For 1 year, Bingley's aspiration in life is that Darcy should be my friend and I should do what he appreciates. Jane's one aspiration in life is everybody should think I'm a good girl. I shouldn't do anything that anybody would disapprove of, even if they're all ignorant and selfish and mean. They have to spend 1 year growing and giving up, outgrowing their ignorance in order to get what they really want and what they're meant for. So for all of us, if we really understand, if things take a long time to come to fruition for us, why? What are we learning from this? What have we to learn? What did we learn that enabled us to solve a problem and make a progress? And then we realize, once we realize it, once we learn it, why did I take 5 years for this? I should have done it. If I had known this, I would have done it in 5 minutes. That's what I feel when I read what Appa says now. I realize all the things I'm reading now, he told me 45 years ago. Why did I take so long? I read it, I knew it, I could tell it to other people, but now it's real to me. Can I honestly say that 45 years is the minimum time for me to understand? Meaning it took me 45 years to be sincere enough to really want to know the truth of what he's saying and to apply it in my life and see the truth of it in my life, which is awakening of consciousness. It's not the spirit who's taking a long time. We are taking a long time. It's not the spirit who's dragging this whole thing out very long. We are dragging it out because we're enjoying the ignorance and we're in no hurry. And we get a little goad of pain along the way to hurry us up. That's also part of the divine plan. Say, after all, if you read Pride and Prejudice and on page 1 they meet and he calls her tolerable and on page 2 they get married, I don't know what you would feel. I'd be disappointed. Why skip all of this? Because when we read what they've gone through, subconsciously we're reading the process of our own awakening. We're reading the process of our own self-discovery. And at least when we read it about other people, it's enjoyable. My favorite part in the whole story is when Lady Catherine and Lizzie meet at Longbourn and they fight with each other. And I mentioned many times to Appa, I feel the actors must have had a real hard time performing that in the movie because they must have enjoyed it so much. They must have been laughing on the sidelines and probably had to stop the filming several times when Lady Catherine started laughing instead of frowning, or when Lizzie burst out laughing because her performance was so magnificent. And if we start laughing at our own performance, meaning be cheerful at whatever comes to us, it will go quickly and we can get to the next story, the next round much sooner. And that's part of the plan as well. Oh, it's true that the awakening of consciousness takes time. It took billions of years, according to the scientist, for matter to become alive. They say, I'm only not saying it's true, but just from the scientist's point of view, they say the universe is about 13.5 or 13.7 billion years old. And the first life on Earth started about 5 billion years ago. And from the first life to the first mammals, like the dinosaurs, maybe is about 200 million years ago. And to the first human or human-like about 2 million years ago, and to the first human about 100,000 years ago. And from the first agriculture where we settled down and started not being roaming in the forest, but cultivating lands and having families and villages and communities, it's only about 10,000 years ago. And from there, how things are getting faster and faster. I think I might have mentioned when my grandmother was born, there was no car, there was no telephone, there was no radio, there was no TV, there was railway. The railway was there and telegraph was the only thing there. And by the time she passed away in 1970, man had landed on the moon. You think about the last thousands of years and how much happened. And I thought, my gosh, she's done everything. There's nothing more after that. There was no cell phone. There was no internet. There was no computer at that time, not to speak of. There were a few computers, but not like, there was no PowerPoint or any of the things we have today. So things are getting faster and faster. So the more conscious we become, the faster it can go. What took billions of years or millions of years or thousands of years or centuries can now be done very quickly. And that's what Sri Aurobindo has come to say. Yoga is conscious evolution. Up until now, nature's been going through subconscious evolution. Now we are the first time where we can do it consciously. We're the first time that there's a human being who can read the divine plan and know what it is. And now it's for us to decide. Are we going to continue this long, slow process, or do we want a shortcut? All right, let's move on. Why do we want to go as fast as our ancestors have gone? We can go faster. Sri Aurobindo says, left to itself, the supermental may come in 30,000 years, but it can be done in 300 years. And they brought down the supermental. So why do we want to go through thousands of years for our progress? Because each crescendo in the performance, the next one is better. The next one is higher. If we're happier here than our ancestors were, why don't we hurry on to the next peak, to the higher performance, the more glorious song than before? That's what they're inviting us to. Okay, you have come this far. Doesn't matter it took 5 billion years. Nobody's finding fault. But don't you want to go a little faster? Wouldn't you like to get it a little faster? That's what they're inviting us to. That's only that. If you want to take 30,000 years, you take it. We are not going to rush you. But it's not necessary. You can have everything you're going to get in 30,000 years. You can have it much sooner. But you have to want it. Not be locking the doors and defending yourself against the transcendent and calling everybody else ignorant. That's all. If you're tired of the ego and really want the divine life, it will come, and mothers here, that's why they came. They came to bring it as fast as we want it. So then it's very interesting. This line I found very intriguing. He says, if they seem to be careless of our grief, they are indifferent to our pain. They're not worried about our joy and sorrow. Sounds very impersonal and harsh, like Darcy. But else, if it were not for that, their strength would be marred and they couldn't save us. If it wasn't for the fact that the spiritual potencies were up there indifferent, we don't care anything, they wouldn't have the power to save us. Not only wouldn't we aspire, they wouldn't have the power to save us. That was really intriguing. So I ask, what does it mean? Well, why doesn't Mother, if Mother's really omnipotent and all of this, why doesn't she answer all our prayers? Because if she answered all our prayers, she wouldn't have the power to save us. Because the real thing we need to be saved from is our prayers. The real thing we need to be saved from is ourself, meaning our ignorance. It is her power to save us comes because she doesn't give us everything we ask for. Because she waits for us to ask for the right thing. Interesting, no? Really interesting. Really makes you think, no? If she why doesn't Mother give us all the rain? If Mother's all powerful, why does she wait for us to ask? We don't know. We're not thinking of anything. Only when we ask for the rain and it comes, then we begin to understand there's something up there. No? No? Why should Elizabeth refuse Darcy? Darcy says, marry me. I need you. I love you. I realize you're the one thing I want. Why doesn't she answer his prayer? You're mean, you're selfish, you're arrogant, you're proud, and you want me to marry you, and you've made my beloved sister so miserable? You're the last man on earth. Isn't it grace coming to Darcy? He says, all I want is you answer one prayer. Just say yes, you'll be my wife. If she says yes and be his wife, he stops there. He levels off there. No, it's all over there. Grace, you can say she's the divine mother coming as grace to Darcy. And the grace is bestowed on Darcy by saying, you're the last man on earth I would ever marry. No? Very interesting, no? So, their aloofness is the thing that gives them the power to save us. So the question arises, what is it that gives us power over anything?
Garry?
Yes, Ashok.
Will anything go wrong if Mother grants us all universal prosperity, which is what everybody wants?
First of all, you've assumed that that's all that people want. I'm sure there must be enough stories, which I don't think of at the moment. If anyone thinks, you can tell. I'll take your question first. Would anything go wrong if Mother gave us all the universal prosperity we want? I think there are many possible answers to this question. One answer is, best case scenario is, we'll get universal prosperity and it will end there. And we'll spend the next 30,000 years enjoying prosperity and miss everything. See, it's like, I think I can only use an analogy, Bob. If you tell the ape in the forest that you pray to Mother and you'll get anything you want, he said, I want infinite bananas everywhere. Mother wants to make the ape into the human, and the ape is only asking, give me more bananas. Because that's the only thing he knows. He doesn't know, give me education, give me culture, give me language, give me knowledge, create an internet for the apes and a Facebook. He doesn't know any of that. He only knows bananas. We are like that. So if the ape's going to remain in the forest for another 30,000 years, it doesn't matter. But if we remain in the zoo for another 30,000 years, I'd say it's a catastrophe. No? That's one answer. I think we can go on, and I don't want to belabor the point, but if we found all of us, I'm not saying there are not exceptions, that we have the power to get universal prosperity, how many would be really happy with universal prosperity if everybody had what we had? It's like, the best I can do is saying, how many monarchs, if you say, you see, we can change the system to democracy and everybody can be a king. What's the joy of being a king if everybody's a king? Then who are my subjects? So, if Mother gives everybody universal prosperity, it's called communism. And today, communism is the enemy. Nobody wants. Appa, as we've often discussed, why is it even in the U.S., where the wealthy have so much money and many people have not much money, why is it that they still respect the capitalist system? Because every American wants to become a rich man, meaning wants to be richer than everybody else. It's not that they want everybody to be rich. Every man's aspiration is, I should become richer than other people. If everybody's going to become rich, what's the use of it? That it definitely won't work. And there are many other answers, but if that's enough, we can go on from there. The purpose is not to make everybody rich. The purpose is for everybody to discover that they can be anything they want to be and have anything they want to have. That their life, it can be rich not only materially, they can live eternally, they can have infinite knowledge, infinite power, and infinite delight of being. And quite frankly, wealth doesn't give you any of those things. Wealth can't even give you infinite health. And once you get infinite riches, you'll find out that the worrying about those riches and how they're kept safely and whether somebody has more and where to invest them, it will give you ulcers and it will make you sick. And most people who are rich, you don't find them happy. So they've done a lot of studies of this, statistical scientific studies. And what they have found is, up to a certain point, they do studies of the happiness of people all over the world now. You know, you can read it on the internet. Real scientific studies. They ask people in all the countries, how happy are you? And they rank the countries by happiness, and they rank the people in the countries by happiness. And what they find out is, up to a certain point, getting more wealth, people tell you they're happier. Beyond a certain point, it doesn't improve your happiness at all, and it may go in the other direction. And that was my own experience. I was lucky. I consider it luck because otherwise, how would I know? I considered luck to see my parents become very prosperous when I was young, and they spoiled me and gave me everything I thought I wanted. It didn't make me a happy child that they gave me everything I wanted. But more than that, I saw they weren't happy. They weren't happy. They were quarreling all the time. If infinite riches is the goal of life, they should have been very happy, and I should have been happy from early childhood. I think the one thing you get when you get infinite riches is you find out it's meaningless. And that's maybe what we have to learn. And that's a reason to get it, so we can outgrow it. But to think it's going to give us everything we want or satisfy us, I think that's there's enough evidence that say Darcy had it already. And look at him. He's the most miserable man in the story. He won't even smile. In the whole story, he doesn't smile until the last moment when she says she'll marry him. He never laughs. He's not happy. He's got responsibility. He's important. He has to maintain his pride and his prestige. So,
Sir?
Yes.
So there is a question from Srijit. Can I read now?
Most welcome.
It is mentioned in the Canto that everything is divine's limitless plan. It seems and evident that ignorance, evil, falsehood, or pain were inevitable for the whole to manifest. Then, why is it given to finite beings like us rather than taking by itself the whole pain? If it is your plan, then why should I suffer for it?
Sri Aurobindo answers this in Life Divine in the first chapter of the book 2, The Cosmic Determinants, right in the beginning, where he says, if God has really created a world of beings who suffer through all of these things that Srijit talks about, it wouldn't be a very impressive God. It would be a perverse God. But the whole secret is God did not create a being of other people and watch them suffer. God has become the universe, become us, in order for the joy of evolution and the experience of the evolution in the ignorance. The fallacy in the question which Srijit asked, which we all ask, it's not his question, it's humanity's question, is We take the ego for reality. All of the suffering and pain comes because we are identified with the shirt, with the cloth, rather than the truth of our being within. And the pain and the suffering and death only come in order for us to know what's the truth of ourselves. We need this help in order to wake up. That's the only purpose. The moment we wake up to the truth of our being, we're immortal. There's no pain. There's no pain for the soul. The real truth of us is our soul, not our body, not our mind. When we wake, all of these things only come to wake us up to that. You say, why should my ego suffer? Why shouldn't I be very important? Why shouldn't everybody praise me and appreciate how important? Then why shouldn't they obey me? And why shouldn't everybody work for me? And why shouldn't everybody give me everything? That would be very nice. Once you start saying that the world should be different, the ego will construct its own world, where it's Lady Catherine's world. Everybody should live under her beneficence and do what she wants so that Lady Anne can marry Darcy, or Carolyn can spite Elizabeth. The same logic you can carry on. There would be no evolution. I would say the grace comes to us at first as pain or death or suffering. It's grace not to make us suffer, but to make us wake up. And that's what Darcy discovers. When she finally confronts death, death disappears. She discovers death is only the face of the divine, that she needs it, that we need in the ignorance. Anyway, he's going to raise this point and answer this point in book 6, and again in the dialogue with death. Savitri is going to accuse death and say, you are not the truth. I banish you. I don't accept you. I reject you. So let's have a little patience for the good question. But my only other answer would be the one I gave to Ashok. If the divine does what we want, we will remain what we are. And the goal, his goal for us, which we are him. That's what he's got a plan here. We're worried about our plan. We want God to fulfill our plan. We are all characters in his story. Say, supposing you're making a performance of Pride and Prejudice and one actor is asked to be Wickham. Say, oh, no, I don't want to play Wickham. That man's a rogue. At the beginning, everybody's admiring me. By the end of the story, everybody's ridiculing me. I don't want to play that part. Let me be the hero. I'll be Darcy. Somebody, this is a key to the story. For Darcy's growth, there needs to be a Wickham there to tell lies and scandal. For Lizzie's progress, there needs to be a Wickham there to free her from her illusions. All of this is only for our progress. So I'd like to go into this issue of how, by not helping, they help us more. So I thought as parents, you can think about this. You just apply the same thing. After all, for your children, parents are the gods. They have all the power. They have all the money. They say, yes, eat this or do that or go here or buy this or buy that and everything. Say, why don't you do everything I want and make me happy? Why don't you just do everything I want when I get my homework? Why don't you do the homework for me? If you say that spinach or vegetables are very important, you eat the vegetables and give me the chocolate and the ice cream. No? You go to school. If you think school's so important, you go to the school for me and let me play. If the parents did everything that the children wanted them to do, would they ever become adults? Would they ever acquire their capacities? Would they ever learn anything? They may be, and how happy would they end up at the end of it? It's an analogy. The parent should have the attitude of wanting the child to be happy and to do anything to please the child. But even there, if the child starts eating pebbles and is crying because the parent won't let him swallow marbles or eat mud, or put the hand in the fire. So we all know that the fact that we don't do everything that other people want is for their own good. The fact that we don't answer every prayer and indulge them in every way is the only way they grow. And it's taken to one extreme in the US, where at the age of 9 months, the mother is trying to get the child to hold the spoon and eat the food for themselves, not because the mother doesn't love the child, but because the mother believes that the child will be more happy and successful in life when it learns to do things for itself and is not dependent. It will develop its capacities. And in a way, the success of America, whatever problems, there are many problems there, I'm only talking about one thing, is the success of America has come because they have not done everything for everybody. They're not pampering everybody. They're trying to help each person develop their capacities, their individuality. So that's at one level. It's very limited, but it's the principle. So then we can extend the same principle. Appa talks about silent will. What's the principle of silent will? When we know what should be done, or we think we know what should be done, what other people should do, what's the best thing to be done, it may be the best for us, the best for them. When we know what's the best thing for them, we know from our experience it's not always the best thing to tell them. No? We've had long discussions on this, no? We had, I remember years ago, we had a meeting here and we were talking about complaint. And why shouldn't we complain? What's wrong? So I asked all of the devotees in the room, what's your experience by complaining to your spouse? What's your success ratio? How much has your complaint changed the other person? Our experience is the more you complain against the other person, the more they defend themselves and complain back again. No? So think of it from the Spirit's point of view. If you really want to help another person, the capacity not to complain, not to give advice, is very often grace. The moment you try to help them, thinking you're helping them, even if you really are trying to help them, the moment you mention it, they get offended, they get angry, they criticize you, they accuse you. So the best you can do to help the other person is quietly pray for them, or pray to Mother that they should make that progress. When we intervene, we make it worse. So apply that to the Spirit's potencies. The Spirit's potencies know exactly what we should be. But if they go in and try to do everything for us, we get organized where we are, and we defend ourselves, and then we accuse the potencies of not doing everything we like and more. So their position, if we take the view that at every moment the divine's response to us is the best possible response for our progress. That's what I've understood from this line. It's not that Mother didn't hear my prayer, I should repeat it, or Mother is angry with me. The best possible thing is for me to make a progress now rather than to expect it from above. Yes, Ashok?
What is the difference between voicing public complaints as opposed to private complaints? See, sometimes we voice a complaint to the EB authority saying the street lights in our street are not working, tap water is not coming, and they come and set it right. It's a complaint. If we don't tell them that the street lights in our street are not working, they are not going to come and repair. So when we voice a complaint, we bring it to their notice and they are able to set it right. Without the complaint, there is no mechanism for setting right a problem. It is the same spirit in which people are complaining, voicing private complaints about their spouses and children. But here you are saying something goes wrong. What is the difference between public and private complaints?
Great, wonderful question. In the U.S., I remember we've lived in California. We lived in Napa from 1984 until about 2010. I remember only one time we ever had to make a complaint about the street lights or the electricity not working. And we didn't make that complaint because they were already repairing it. Follow my logic. You think that if you don't complain, you won't get results. I would say it's because people want to complain that they need to complain. I live in a country, and there are many countries where you never complain because there's never any reason to complain. Why? You put it backwards and say there's no reason to complain. You don't complain because there's no reason to complain. I'm putting it backwards because nobody wants to complain about and ask the government to do anything. They want to do it themselves. Everything is done. Everybody does their job. I know it's an opposite response. When we hear that there's still a mentality, government should give everything. Why streetlights and so they're already giving free electricity to the farmers. And the complaint of the farmers is you're not giving more of it for free. If the farmers say we're willing to pay for electricity, they can have it for 24 hours. But no, somebody should give it to us for free. And by the way, we want color TVs also for free. And why not cell phones for every man, woman, and child? As well. So I'm reversing it. The process of evolution of consciousness is you don't ask, you don't expect, you do everything you could do. You might as well say, why, look, on our street where we live, why don't we complain every day that the garbage people don't come every day and clean up the street and keep it clean? They allow all that horrible mess outside. What's the answer to that? Can any government keep streets clean if the people keep dumping all their trash out in front on the road? Janani has commented when she went to Singapore, she can't believe it. The place, there's not a paper on the road anywhere. Not because the government is cleaning it up 24 hours a day, because nobody throws a paper on the ground. So you reverse it. Government not cleaning our trash all the time is a message to us. We shouldn't put trash on the ground. That's the development of social consciousness. So now you say, your second part is, if we don't complain about, if we don't ask our personal for everything, it will never change. I ask you, you do a little scientific research of your own. What is the success rate of your complaints at the personal level? What is the success rate of anybody's complaints about anybody at the personal level? Actually, government is much more responsive than we are. Because at least they have to get elected. We're not going for any election. We can, if we really want to, get rid of the complaints, the legitimate complaints about other people. We have to give up being a source of complaint. No. We have to be complaining about ourselves and making that progress. It's the same argument. People do things to us to help us make a progress. We think that they do things to us so that we can correct them. Everything that happens to us, we should understand it comes for our progress. Instead of progressing, we ask them to change, and it goes on and on and on. There is a secret knowledge, no? It's not a metaphysical knowledge, a very practical knowledge. At every minute, I keep telling that person how to do it, and they do it the opposite. It's the divine opportunity for us. It's a divine grace coming to us. Great. So, yes. Take the mic, though, because they should all hear you.
Speak loudly so they can hear you also.
I was just wondering that if the spirit lost its power from being detached, being aloof, and indifferent, but for us as human beings, if we are aloof or indifferent, it's a tendency to fail. As human beings, we are supposed to be responsible for other people, be caring, work for the greater cause, give ourselves for the greater cause of society. That is like a higher principle. So the rule seems to be a little different for us and the spirit.
Okay, if I've understood you, and I want to be sure they heard you, we're saying that the spirit should be aloof, but we're expected to be very responsive and concerned with others. Good. When we're aloof, when we appear to be indifferent, we really are indifferent. When we're indifferent, when we don't pay attention to other people's needs and everything, it's because we're lost in our egos and our selfishness. Sri Aurobindo didn't say that the spiritual potencies are enjoying themselves in their selfishness and therefore they don't pay any attention to us. He's saying their apparent aloofness is what gives them the power to save us. Their goal is the divine plan. They know what the plan is for them. They do what is best for us, and sometimes
doing what's best for us is to turn the other way. And not take notice. So you're talking about the behavior, we're talking about the intention. Even when the spirit, put it this way, even when Mother doesn't answer our prayers, it doesn't mean that Mother doesn't care, she's not interested in us. She does that in order to save us. Oh, if I answer that prayer, the person's going to get in hot trouble, hot soup, and spend the next 3 years in suffering. I am not answering that prayer for their sake. The devotee may complain, Mother is not answering my prayer, she's hard-hearted, she doesn't hear me, she doesn't want to give me what I want. But Mother understands if I give what she wants, it's all going to be ruined. That's the difference. So I think the human equivalent is we should want the best for everybody. We should have goodwill for everybody. Having that goodwill doesn't mean you do everything that everybody asks you. Say if you have a debtor, if you know somebody who's in debt who likes to borrow and spend, and if you want to indulge them, what will happen? They will keep taking more and spending it. Or you take a worse case, somebody who's alcoholic and keeps asking you, come, you give me more, I want more and more of this, and more of it will only destroy them. It's not hard-heartedness or ill will or indifference to ignore it, or to even hide the bottle or to throw it out. No. Or even if money is there, to conceal it. For the sake of that person, you don't give them what's going to hurt them. So he's not said the immortals have ill will towards humanity or a lack of goodwill. In order to save, they have to have the power to refuse, just like the parent who has to say, you've already had 3 ice creams. I think that's enough. Otherwise, you're going to be in deep pain tomorrow morning when you wake up. No? Clear? What society demands is an appearance. Normally, society doesn't demand goodwill. Society demands the appearance of goodwill. So I'm very sorry about that. Oh, if there was any way I could help, I would. I'd say the right thing. What Mother wants from us is the real goodwill. The goodwill may be to refuse the other person what's not good for them. Clear? Okay, good question. So I wanted to cover one more point before we'll close for today. The last else. Okay. Oh, by the way, there's a TV series on recently on BBC called The Crown, and it's a drama, but it's based on the facts of the life of Queen Elizabeth II, the current queen. From the time before she becomes queen, she's the longest reigning monarch in history. No queen has reigned this. She became queen, maybe she was only 18 or 19, I forget. Now she's 90, almost 90 or around 90. So longest reigning monarch in history. And what she learned, it's very well done. I told Appa and I even showed him some of the episodes. She asks for the advice of her mother, who was the previous queen, that what to do when the political parties are fighting and you feel one of the parties is right and one of the parties is wrong. Shouldn't I, as a queen, isn't it my job to intervene? And her mother tells her, your job is not to intervene and take sides. When the 2 parties are quarreling and calling each other enemies and all, your job is to represent the country. And you represent, even when the political parties are quarreling and saying the other man is the devil, you represent the country as a whole. And why she's so popular, and the monarchy is 200 years ago, monarchy was abolished. But she's so popular because she symbolizes the unity of the country by not intervening, by not taking sides. So what happens if your children are quarreling? Each of the children will want the parent to side with them against the other parent. No. Somebody must be above it all, and you are all the family. Somebody represents the good of the whole family. That's what the spiritual potencies are. We want the divine to take our side against everybody, all our enemies, and say, he's right, you're right, and they're wrong, and you should support me. The divine is holding the whole thing together because the illimitable plan is that we all should discover not only that we're divine, but everybody else is divine also. It's not one side's going to win and suddenly we will be proven the heroes. So this is a great knowledge, not as theory, but as practice. It's not so easy to capture the first time, but if you start thinking about it in your own lives, and the power of the fact that Mother doesn't answer every prayer, and how the grace is there, there's a real secret there and a real power. We're praying, but we're in the ignorance. We don't know what's good for us. And yet we expect Mother to do this and that and are disappointed all the time. That's our plan. That's not the illimitable plan. So there's something great here. So I just like to go a little further. And this is the interesting, this will help answer, I think. The immortal knows the truth in God's extremes, alive to the truth that dwells in God's extremes. The immortals who we think are indifferent or are not responding to us, who are not taking our side against our enemy, or saying, my husband is wrong, I am right, or vice versa, knows the truth in both extremes. The God is not coming and answering all of Mr. Bennett's prayers. He's answering. It's Mrs. Bennett who brings all the suitors for the children. It's also Mrs. Bennett who sends all the suitors running away. It's Mr. Bennett who saves the day by taking responsibility. So for the sake of the family, who should God answer prayers for? Mother answers the prayer of Mrs. Bennett by giving the suitors, Darcy and Bingley and Wickham and Collins, to come, and then ignores all of Mrs. Bennett's scheming, and finally answers Mr. Bennett's prayer when he takes responsibility at the end, and the welfare of the family is fulfilled when Mrs. Bennett is confined to her room. No? So the truth is something greater than the preferences of the ego. So there is a truth in everything. To discover the truth in the accusations of one's enemy is to have divine knowledge. There is a truth in Wickham's accusations against Darcy, even though everything he says is false. There's a truth in it. It may not be that you have cheated Wickham, but you have offended everybody by your arrogance. You need that falsehood has a truth in it. To discover the opportunity in every difficulty, to see how we can make a progress out of every challenge. That's what we should be doing rather than asking Mother to answer all our prayers. She will always answer the sincere prayers. The sincere prayer doesn't mean I'm not sincerely praying for riches. It means what I should really be praying for is everybody else should become prosperous. Because my sincerity, when I pray ardently for riches, I mean I want to be richer than other people. A sincere prayer for riches is I want everybody to be prosperous. Then prosperity comes to me because my prayer is sincere from her point of view, not from the ego's point of view, from the soul's point of view. There's so much we can learn from this, no? We think, I have faith in Mother, so even when she doesn't answer my prayer, I forgive her. It's not to forgive her. We shouldn't be forgiving her. We should try to understand why. There's a knowledge there for us. Oh, She doesn't say, forgive me if I don't answer your prayer. She says, be sincere. Appa says, if you're sincere, the prayer will instantly be answered. Well, I trust Mother. I know she has my good cut out for me, so I don't question her when she doesn't answer my prayer. The purpose is not that I shouldn't question Mother. The question is I should question myself. If Mother doesn't answer my prayer, it means I'm not sincere. Well, let's not talk about that. I trust Mother and she trusts me, meaning I want to remain where I am. So every prayer that Mother doesn't answer is a great opportunity for me to become more sincere. So this is when the Spirit doesn't intervene, we have much, it's grace. We want to cite when you talk about Mother to other people, Mother is great. She did this for me. She did that for me. She gave me this. She gave me that. We don't say to other people, Mother is great. She denied me this. She denied me that. She refused this. She refused that. We don't think of that as Mother's greatness. It's equally her grace. So you know the formula now, no? The formula is answer Mother's prayer. Answer Mother's prayer. If she has answered all our prayers, then isn't it time for us to give back? No? Correct. So this is very interesting. We'll finish with it. Awake to a motion of all-seeing force and the unexpected good from woeful deeds. There's an unexpected good that comes from the deeds that to us are painful. The immortals see not the way we see. They don't look at, Mother doesn't look at the world and our life the way we look at it. She knows the unexpected good that can come from something that for us we consider a misfortune. She wants us to get the good. The immortal knows what's hidden. The hidden powers, the hidden secrets. He knows the law and the natural lines. He knows what's waiting for us in the eternal's hour, which Mother wants us to get. Mother's conduct towards us at every minute is to help us get the most in the shortest possible time, to get the most of what our soul seeks, not the most of what our ego asks for. So I'd like to close with just one more slide so that this is the end of an argument. Yet, in spite of their indifference, in spite of their aloofness, still the secret spiritual aid is there. A divine intervention is throned above. An outstretched hand is felt upon our lives. Its unslackening grasp, it keeps us safe. So even when Mother refuses to give what we want, her grace is still there. Her outstretched hand is there protecting us, is helping us in the maximum way possible. It's only an appearance because we don't know what we should be asking for, and we don't know we're headed in the wrong direction, and Mother's not helping us go in the wrong direction. It's grace that she doesn't help us. Once, about 40 years ago, some lady from Australia came and she wanted to buy some garments, and she was coming to Pondicherry for the first time, and she landed in Mumbai. And when she went for her flight to Madras, she was told that there's no room on the flight and she has to wait. And she was very angry and had to wait for, that she'd have to wait for 2 days. There were so few flights at that time in order to get to Chennai. And then she found out the next day that that plane crashed. So the outstretched hand is always there of Mother. Even when she denies us, she does it out of love. She does it out of grace. There's so much we can learn from that. So he said, the mysterious plan, the illimitable plan, there are two poles. And spirit at one end, nature at the other. Now we have heard about the spiritual end of the pole. We have not yet heard about the life and